Hi all, in today's video I'm going to show you how to partition a drive on a Mac system. Now why would you want to partition a drive and what exactly is partition? Let me explain. A partition is taking one hard drive and splitting it into two. The reason you would need it is if you wanted to do a time machine backup from the internal drive of your Mac laptop, you would then want to take that time machine backup and put it on the second partition because you simply can't make a time machine backup on an internal drive that only has one partition. What it really does is it simply appears on the desktop as two different hard drives, as you can see here, and it really is coming from one hard disk. So the good part of it is you can actually keep two separate OSs, one for Yosemite, one for Maverick is in mine, and I also have a time machine backup running on the Maverick build. This way I can always test out a new OS without having to alter my old OS and actually use my second partition to kind of move my user accounts over to the new operating system. So I kind of rotate these drives as the new operating systems come out, and I find it to be much more helpful. Also, if you're having a problem with one of your operating systems, you can boot off the other one using Startup Disk and actually run Disk Utility and clean it up. Yes, there is a hidden partition on Yosemite that you could also use, but this seems to be faster, and it also could keep you up and running until you have a chance to fix your disk, because you can always boot off the other partition and actually work as if you had an operating system that isn't damaged. So that really works out nicely. Well, right now I have an external drive called storage that I have mounted on the desktop. I'm going to partition that one. The same method that I use to partition these up here, which are my internal ones, is the same method I'm going to use for the external. The cool part of partitioning now is that you can add on a partition and not have any of your data deleted. But there is this very specific way to do it. If you have a hard drive that has nothing on it and you want to partition it, you do it one way. And if you have a hard drive that already has data on it and you just want to extend to have a second partition for a time machine backup or another operating system, this is how you would do it. So you go to the Go menu, go to Utilities, and you open up an application called Disk Utility. There you go. Now, when you open up Disk Utility, you're going to see in the upper left-hand corner the drives that you have mounted on your desktop. I have Storage, Maverick, and Yosemite. Here is Yosemite, Maverick, and Storage. It matches. It's pretty easy. The hierarchy of the Yosemite and Maverick is the actual hard drive. In fact, in my storage drive, you can tell that it actually tells you how large it is and that it's a WD My Passport. The second partition, or the first partition in the second row of the hard drives, is actually the first partition, and the second one is Maverick. And as you can see, when you click on those, you don't see a partition tab over here, only when you select the top one. The same will happen here on my storage drive, where if I click on storage, I will not see that partition tab, but I will see it on the top part. So we're going to partition the storage drive, but if I was going to partition my internal, I'd simply select this one instead of this one. So I'm going to select my storage drive here, and I'm going to click on this partition tab. Now when you get to this window, what you're seeing is the blue is the used space on my partition, and the white is the empty space. So obviously I have a lot of space that I can create a second partition on this. If this was all filled up to blue and you only had a little bit of white, I wouldn't recommend partitioning until you deleted some files. There is a pull-down menu here that if you were erasing this drive and starting fresh and you didn't care about any of the files that were on it or was completely an empty disk that you just bought, you could create 2 or 3 or up to 16 partitions right here, and it would actually create the partitions. You'll see them pop up here. But since I don't want to lose the data that I actually have on my storage disk, I'm going to choose a different method. And this is the method that you should use if you already have an operating system running on your laptop. So there's a plus and a minus sign here. This means add the partition or delete it. So the same way that we're going to add the partition, if you find that you need the space later on, you can delete it here without losing your initial drive. So I'm going to hit the plus sign, and as you can see, it split the partitions into two, but I still kept the name. If you see this as untitled, then you're probably not in a good place for keeping your data. You definitely want the drive name to show up here. That's an indication that you were doing this right. Then you go over here and you hit apply. When you hit apply, read the partitioning of this disk will change some of the partitions, but no partitions will be erased. That's important. We definitely want to make sure that no partitions will be erased because you don't want any of your data to be lost. This partition will be added. So here it's telling us the new partition will be storage 2, and this partition will be resized. That's a good sign also because resized means it's not erasing it. So we're going to click partition right here and we're going to watch what happens. It will unmount your storage disk, or whichever disk that you're actually partitioning, then remount it, then it will work unmounted again, and now it's got a full mount of the partition 1. Now it's doing partition 2, and now as you can see, in this side, we see that I have 2 partitions, just as I have the Yosemite and Maverick here, and I see partition 2 should be empty, which it is, and let's take a look at the storage 1. I still have files on it, which is a good indicator that I did this right and I did not lose anything. So the best way, again, to use this is for Time Machine backup. So once you're done with all of this, go into Time Machine and select the hard drive that you'd like to use for a Time Machine backup, or simply reinstall an OS and select your secondary, in this case a storage 2 disk. You can actually install a second OS there, and then using startup disk, boot from one or the other. But if you're just using it for Time Machine, simply after you do this, go into your Time Machine preferences and select one of these partitions for your drive. Hope that helps and hope you enjoyed listening. Thanks.